The Able to Care podcast is sponsored by Able Training Support Limited, who build partnerships with organisations to develop confidence and competence in their team to promote positive outcomes for all. Find the link in the description. Hello and welcome to the Able to Care podcast. This is your host, Andy Baker, and joining me as often is Nadine Sutton.
Hello.
Hello. So, how are you doing? You all right?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thank you very much. I hear it was a very special day yesterday. Celebrating something big. Yes?
Yeah.
Are you willing to say how many years young you are?
25.
25. So thank you for joining me as always. So as far as today's conversation, podcast, we thought we'd talk about, we had a chat, we talk about person-centered care. So in many of the subjects that we teach, as far as what we do, obviously person-centered care is kind of fundamental and underpins pretty much every topic to some degree or another, doesn't it?
It has to, doesn't it, really? If we're caring for individuals, we need to be person-centred.
So I know one of the areas that you cover in quite a lot of the dementia courses that we refer to is the Kitwood flower, isn't it? So Thomas Kitwood was a psychologist, I believe, who kind of developed this person-centered approach, moving away from the old medical model. And I think a few courses focus specifically around the Kitwood flower. I know he developed it initially for dementia care, but I think it's then been adapted and used across the board, or can be, definitely, if it isn't.
Yeah, because obviously it talks about the psychological needs of individuals, and I think it applies really nicely in dementia, but I see it work for and applied to in other areas as well. So I think it's a really good sort of basis to work from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, so if I remember correctly, obviously we've got the flower itself and the 5 petals of the flower. In the centre, I remember it being love. Is that correct?
Love.
Yes, which is always quite sweet and endearing, isn't it? Yeah, so, but I don't think that's always obviously necessarily carers loving them. It is about feeling that sense of connection with life for the individual themselves, isn't it? So the Kitwood flower is all about their psychological well-being, isn't it? So what are the different petals? Should we go around one by one and just kind of have a little bit of a discussion on each of those? So
of course,
what's the first one?
Comfort.
Comfort, absolutely.
Well, that's where I always start, so comfort.
I think that's on a day-to-day basis. You start with comfort and then build your day from around there. Okay, so I think both of us do some exercises specific around this person-centered care aspect.
Yeah.
I think one of the ones I do, and I think you do as well, is kind of if you ended up in care tomorrow, what 5 things would you want people to know?
Yeah.
So as far as what kind of answers do you get as far as the comfort side of things is concerned?
I get a range of different answers. So I've actually had people telling me that their comfort is not wearing a bra.
Right.
Like the way people dress, so pajama days, so people find that comforting. Being warm, so temperature, environmental, so other things that bring them comfort. So having a loved one around them. I think comfort means so many different things to different people. It's really nice when you get. So I think when you say comfort, they're like, oh, a blanket.
Yeah.
I mean, if a blanket's your thing, but no. So some people say to me like, my comfort is wearing socks in bed, for example, or comfort would be in having a nice chair to actually sit on. Comfort again, it's what would your comforts be?
No, I think I expand it out a little bit from there because obviously you've got the kind of, as you said, like soft furnishings and comfortable chair and, you know, what I'm wearing being comfortable and those sorts of things. But I think as well, maybe it's the comfort zone as well, being kind of what I feel like. I feel comfortable in my own home because it's my home. I know where everything is. I can navigate it in the dark, so to speak. So, so I think there's an aspect, but it's also going to the shop that I like and it's engaging with the people that I like, all feel comfortable to me. And although I think stepping outside that comfort zone is massively important, I think the comfort isn't, as you said there, it's very personal, isn't it?
It is. And I think comfort it's security for a lot of people. Not many, and especially those that are in care or in the care sector, comfort's a really big important one. We can't always push people outside of those
100%.
Comfort zones. So it does mean many different things to different people. Comfort could even be things like when you're in pain. So how, what's your pain personality like? How do you like to be treated? What makes you more comfortable when you're in pain? So you can apply it to everything and anything when it comes to comfort.
Yeah.
So I often ask people, when are you at your most comfortable? Sleep. So that's what a lot of people do tend to say. But others, it's like watching TV or, just feeling generally relaxed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, is that being able to switch off, feel relaxed? But I like that. And I think even with sleep, though, it's a case of right bed, wearing the right clothing, having the right temperature, having quiet, no lights, all those sorts of things are still part of that comfort needs, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
So what are we tending to focus on around identity then?
This again, it's whatever that individual's identity is, or what they, or who they identify as. So I often give the example of mine, like a big part of my identity, as boring as it sounds, but it is being a mum, a mother, a caregiver as well, a family member, but also a big part of my identity. You know what I'm going to mention? Leicester. Woo! So up the blues.
There's probably many viewers, listeners that didn't realise you're from Leicester and they were going, where is that accent from?
I think people know I'm from Leicester, actually. Yeah, so anyway, a big part of that could be religion, culture, background. It's just so, like, I identify as a woman, so being a woman's a big part of my identity as well. How do you identify, Ander?
Depends on the day a little bit. So, the identity question, I ended up... when I was doing my psychology degree, I did a big essay study around identity. So there's a psychological study as far as like the 20 questions, which is who am I? And I found it a really interesting topic to delve down into, because I think identity changes over time. I think identity depends on what's going on in your life. I think it isn't a fixed thing. And a lot of sense of identity can really be a broad spectrum. As you say, it's like where you fit within your family hierarchy, so the roles that you play, but it could also be your job, your career. It could be, some people I think identify as their age, for instance, but not everybody does. So some people, when you're celebrating a birthday, like you did the other day, it's kind of like you're probably very aware of your age, and you maybe...
I'm halfway to 70. I'm very aware of that.
Right. But that's it. It's the 30 club or the 40 club. And I know it changed my identity a little bit when I reached the over 40 mark. And there is some people who are like in elderly care. I think some people are really proud of their age, aren't they? Oh, guess how old I am. Yeah. And I'm in 90 and they're really proud. Others, I don't think would even mention their age.
No.
And I've done it before in other courses, not necessarily person-centered, but when we look at identity, it's is it how you identify them, or is it how they would identify themselves as well? And age could be a factor. Medical conditions like I'm a diabetic, for some people, be part of their identity. Other people, it's just, no, it's not who I am. It's just something I have to do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
The food you eat, it's like
all of
that.
Yeah.
There's
all
so
of it
much
comes into it. Yeah. I like identity.
I think it's as far as because even I like personality traits are part of your identity as well, isn't it? Like I quite like personally to be funny. I know those listening and watching can't tell. But so being funny is part of my identity, or being kind, or they're still part of kind of who I am. And I think it's allowing those opportunities within person-centered to express who a person is, but not just in residential. I talk about, in my book, I had a teacher who recognised that I like to be class clown, and rather than telling me off for being the class clown, he said, well, if you get all your work done, I'll give you a little slot at the end where you can have a little show. You could do 5 minutes to entertain the
You loved
classroom.
that, didn't you?
Absolutely. But he was nurturing that performer in me.
Yeah.
But also using it as a motivator to get me to do my work and not disrupt the class from trying to be the centre of attention at the wrong time. Yeah. So I think that kind of ties in across the board. If you can recognise what's important to this person, we can nurture it rather than take it away.
Yeah, definitely. I really think everything comes into identity. Like you said, personality. One thing that I do come across quite a lot is around, like you've mentioned, food. So cultural, especially for cultural. So where I've sort of worked, I had a gentleman that his background, he just meat and veg kind of guy.
That's all right to say. I can see there was a moment in your eye going, is that all right? Am I allowed to say meat and veg?
So
referring to food.
A gravy kind of dinner.
Yeah.
That was his sort of favourite food. And then we had another gent who only ate like specific food because of the culture or like religious factors as well. Or you've got just so much into it. Identity is a great one because the more that we understand a person's identity and not what we think it is, but what they perceive themselves to be, the better, more person-centered care you can give, 1,000%.
I think I always refer to it as going, for many people, especially in the kind of, as we're getting older, I think a lot of the aspects that we may consider as being part of our identity can be very easily lost. So, I am a son, for instance, but at some point my parents won't be anymore. So that will no longer be part of my identity. As you get older, like your kids don't need you in the same way. So being a parent is still always going to be there, but it may not be be able to express that form of your identity.
Yeah.
My job is a big part of my identity. I won't be able to work one day. So I think there's a lot of people as they get older, there's certain aspects of their identity that they don't have access to anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it's so important for any care environment or anybody who's caring to try and what bits of identity are still left and how can we allow those to flourish. So if it is humour, if it is being good at something is part of their identity, then can we give them that opportunity to be good at that still and to do things? If they are, maybe they did something for a job, but part of the satisfaction they got from that job is that they felt they were helping other people. So can we still give them opportunities to help other people to feel like they have that identity? I'm still a helper. I still support people. I'm still kind. I'm still all of those bits. I think that's where you have to think outside the box a little bit for me as far as identity is concerned.
Yeah, like it's really broad, isn't it? Definitely. But moving on to the next one, what you've just said there about job and that sort of stuff. So occupation's next on Tom Kitwood's flower. And when we say occupation, we don't just mean paid work, obviously, or just jobs and stuff. So I've got a really good example, but I don't know if you want to kick off.
No, you go for it.
So occupation-wise, I was chatting to a gentleman and he said his wife was living with dementia with Lewy bodies and she moved into a care home. And first 2 weeks, she was not engaged. She didn't want to get involved with any of the activities being offered. And they sort of said to him, so what does she like to do? And he said, it's a bit of a hard one. She's been a housewife for 50 years. So they made her a tabard, a little sort of like name tag and everything, risk assessed, obviously, all of this. But then they made her own little cleaning trolley and said, would you like to work for us? Some days she'd do it for 10 minutes, then she'd go around dusting. And then other days she would do it for an hour. But it was meaningful and it kept her occupied. And again, when we talk about, jobs and occupation, anything that keeps you occupied, isn't it? So your occupation, like what's some of your occupations? Jiu-jitsu.
I got my hobbies and things like that. It's obviously a part of it.
Yeah.
But it is just, I think I'm quite house proud to some degree or another. So even the housework kind of things is still quite important to me and stuff like that. And I think it's that sense of purpose, isn't it? That again, I'm providing a service, I'm doing something worthwhile, whether it be for other people or whether it just be for themselves. An example similar to you on was place I worked with, it was a groundskeeper that I had a chat with, and sort of he just got one of the gentlemen out, a bit restless, looking out the window all the time, got him out there raking some leaves, and he only did it for about 5 minutes or so, and then he sort of made his excuses and headed back in. But when he came in and he was asked, would you like a cup of tea? It wasn't his usual yes. It was suddenly a case of, well, I've earned it today.
Yeah.
And it's just that, even though he hadn't been doing it for long, it felt like he'd achieved something. He'd done something to help. He'd done something worthwhile. And obviously that's hugely important with when we're in elderly care and things like that. And I think in dementia care, I know we've spoken about it many times. I have a bit of a bugbear, and it comes from Teeper Snow kind of referring to it as the cruise ship mentality, the holiday park. Yeah. It's all about the fun, and we've got an entertainer in on this night, an entertainer on this night, and we're doing this on this night. It's like, but where's the purpose? Where's the occupation?
Yeah.
Where's the
I think it's the meaningful side of it. So what's meaningful to them, and what did they used to like doing, or what have they something that they've always done? Getting somebody to wash up or fold tea towels or have some input with like things like their own laundry and stuff. It's meaningful in its occupation, and it's all these things that still empower people, promotes independence. And I hear a lot from caregivers, oh, well, we can't do that risk assessment. And I'm like, okay, so what can you do rather than just what you can't do? Because that occupation, you know, if somebody did something for me and you all day, every day, Andy, we'd lose our skills. We wouldn't, where's the purpose and the meaning where's the drive to get out of bed? I'm not surprised that many people in the care sector, well, I've got nothing to do, so what's the point?
I think this is where it maps over as well, not just in elderly care where it's or dementia care, where it's trying to give that person still maintaining a good quality of life and a sense of purpose and achievement. I think on the other end of the scale as well, this is where it still pulls in. So on the able target system, you know, I included the person-centered principles and Kitwood's flower within my development of the preventative side of things, because if I feel like to build my self-esteem, I need to develop mastery. I need to achieve. I need to succeed in things. It's not about feeling good. It's about doing good to feel good.
Yeah.
And providing me those opportunities. So even within children's services, you know, providing me those opportunities to win, to get a success, to achieve something, to do more today than I could have done yesterday.
Yeah.
I think the important thing with that is to, a bit like you said, it's not about what they can't do, it's what they can do.
Yeah.
And it should be managing those expectations. Well, they can't fully bake a cake and therefore they can't even try, but they could break an egg.
You could put their hands in it,
absolutely.
Taste test it, absolutely, yeah.
And it's the same, but it's on the other end of the spectrum, not just the elderly side of things.
No, of course,
it's, you know, okay, maybe they can't just cook a full dinner, but maybe we can start them off of getting the success of just laying the table or doing something and engaging in any way to help contribute towards the household, towards the setting and things like that.
Yeah.
That sense of responsibility. And some kids seem to just thrive off it anyway, don't they? Within many schools, it's a case of giving that job to do. And
it's
that kid
pride, isn't it? Pride in achievement. And I think as humans, we like that, don't we?
100%. So I think occupation across the board is always part of what we're looking for, a sense of achievement, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning and things like that. And there's some great examples as, you know, when somebody isn't, you know, cognitively, they're not as strong as they were, or they're not quite as aware of what's going on, that, you know, a former plumber being able to just mess around with some piping, it may be enough. You know, as long as we make it meaningful, going, would you mind sorting this out for us? Because we need to get it. It's such a mess. And they spend 10 minutes or 2 hours playing around with this stuff. As long as they feel like it's we can kind of go, that's really appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it is. I offered some advice actually, and I'd never heard back to see if it worked or anything, but there was a day centre for people living with dementia, and one of the gents there didn't want to engage in the activities. I said, well, do you know what he used to like doing? Oh, he was a maintenance man. I said, please give him a box of things that are broken and ask him to fix them. And there was like, oh, I think he'd really like that, because again, it's something that he maybe really enjoyed doing it. It's sense of purpose. And again, once that's something, even if it doesn't get fixed, but like once he feels like it is fixed for him, that's a really good feeling, isn't it? It's that sort of like, I've done something good here. So
that's it. I think again, whenever we're doing it, we never should focus on the outcome. We're focusing on the process. And you know, it doesn't matter whether any gets fixed or not. The fact that for in that kind of environment, do you enjoy doing it? For a younger environment, be a case of, well, what can we learn from that? What did they do well? Focus on the positives.
I know. I always teach this to people. Don't worry about finishing the task. The fact that they've even engaged and started it is bloody good. It's really, really good. So, but if that cake don't get baked, it's fine.
So next one we've got on in is inclusion. Yeah. As far as inclusion is concerned, for me, I think there's inclusion about feeling connected, a sense of community, that they matter within the social group. We are social creatures, but again, this has to be person-centered as much as my idea of what's inclusion may be different from somebody else's. So, and this is where, you know, introvert, extrovert kind of comes into play, that maybe I like being around people for a limited period of time, and that's my inclusion. Maybe I want to be around people all the time, and I want to sit in social circles and chat and talk and spend my time socializing. So I think, again, it's the importance of always going back to that very person-centered, isn't it, with this part?
Yeah, definitely. Inclusion's a hard one. And I think, especially in the in the care sector, like, so it's like me and you going to move into a home tomorrow and then expecting that we'll get on with the other 30 people that live there.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And I think there's a massive expectation on people to just be okay to live in a care home, for example, especially residential. Again, I don't know all these people, so that inclusion takes time to sort of build up, to socialise and those sorts of things. But like you said, is this person a people person? Did they only like socialising with family members, or did they only like socialising with specific thank you, specific friends? And like you said, we are social animals, and I do hear a lot from people say, I don't like other humans, I like to be alone. But we do need them, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's two sides to it, isn't there? Obviously, seclusion and isolation is one of the worst tortures a human being can have inflicted on them.
COVID.
Yeah,
was a really good example of that.
Absolutely. Or where they've used it as punishment in prisons as far as isolation is concerned, because we don't do well without people. We are social animals. So when people go, oh, my dream world would be to locked in a room and get rid of other people. Wouldn't. You'd find it awful. I know you think sometimes when you're having a bad day that people just irritate you, but you really need them.
Well, people are irritating, aren't they? Yeah.
But there's also the other one is that hell would be being locked in a room with your best friends is another kind of thing I've heard. I don't know whether you ever remember, it's probably you're a bit young for this, which makes me feel sad, but there's a TV program called Red Dwarf, and in the program Red Dwarf, all of the crew of this ship get wiped out apart from one person, and the ship brings back a hologram of his bunkmate, but the person he got on with the least. They weren't friends. They weren't one of his mates. It was somebody he didn't get on with. But actually, the computer kind of refers to that going, yeah, but nightmare is being locked in a room with your best friends, that actually that disagreement, that conversation, the stimulus you get from actually engaging with somebody who you don't like 100% all the time, they do wind each other up a little bit, is more, allows you to thrive in some ways more than somebody you just hang out with.
Yeah.
I know me and you quite enjoy like a discussion, whereas we have slightly different opinions because it feels more worthwhile sometimes than both of us just going, yes, and just agreeing with each other all the time. So I think that's...
We do like a good debate, don't we?
We do like a good debate.
Yeah, I win.
But I think that is that inclusion within a care environment. I think sometimes there's an attempt to enforced inclusion sometimes.
Yeah.
You get that in workplace as well. I've spoken to a few people, like some people don't want to go to the Christmas party because the work friends are their work friends and they're not their real friends.
No,
and that's okay.
That,
and they just don't connect on that way. They've got those boundaries and separation.
It's like it takes a while to build up those therapeutic attachments with the people that are surrounded with them. I think, again, there's a big expectation, not just elderly, but all care facilities that, you know, when people come into these places, there's an expectation that they're supposed to get on with, I don't know, between 10 and maybe even 50 people around them. Yeah. It's not realistic and it's not really fair. So I think when it comes to inclusion, you know, some people are fine. If I end up in care, I reckon I'll be everyone's mate. I give the carers a bit of...
talk to anybody.
I do. I like talking to people. I like humans.
Yeah.
But again, it's so depending on personality and those sorts of things, isn't it? But to keep inclusion, what do you want to be included in? What was your social inclusion and how can we keep that going? So is it seeing family? Is it spending time with partners or seeing, I don't know, again, did you used to go on dog walks? Like you do a lot of park running and things like that, don't you? That's how you keep a bit of your social inclusion going.
I don't even go to park runs, I just run around parks. I do go to park run, yeah.
He does it on a Saturday morning as well.
Robbing kids' lollipops, just running away. Thank you for listening to the Able to Care podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, comment, and share. We really appreciate all of you listeners. So the last petal on the Kitwood flower then is, I've forgotten it now. Just say 2 seconds. Attachment. So this is something we could go into quite a lot of depth on, isn't it, as far as attachment is concerned? But when you're teaching about the Kitwood flower then, what would you say you tend to focus on, or what do you tend to talk about around attachment?
So this one's actually a really important one. So attachment means different things to different people as well. So your attachments could be objects, could be people, could be pets, it could be anything. But when I'm working with caregivers, I try and mainly focus on their attachments with their clients. And I often use this example. So I'll say, do you guys have attachments with your residents? They say, yeah, but we're not allowed to. We shouldn't really. And I ask them, if somebody was giving you personal care, would you want an attachment with that person? They're like, yeah. I was like, me too. So I think things are changing around that. So the old school sort of way of thinking was, you can't get close or emotional. Actually, I think we can, and build those therapeutic attachments with the clients that you're supporting, because I don't think it's authentic without it, if that makes sense. So I focus a lot on those sorts of attachments. But yeah, like I said, it could be anything.
Lots of the stuff that I've talked about, I've done podcasts in the past of as far as a professional and personal self, as far as the 3P model. I think when we talk about boundaries, professional boundaries, or we talk about the therapeutic relationship should be respectful, caring, nurturing, clearly boundaried.
Yeah,
like any relationship should be. You know, whether I'm in a romantic relationship, whether I'm with a friendship, all relationships have boundaries to them. And yeah, the professional relationship does need to be bounded in a particular way, but that doesn't mean we need to be clinical or not engage in any form of attachment. And I think it's 100% right, as you rightly said there. If I'm accepting personal care from somebody, I would like to be able to trust them, which is a form of attachment, isn't it? But if I've got, especially if I'm unbefriended, if I've got family who live far away and I end up in any kind of residential environment, well, who else am I going to build attachments with? You know, I'm only allowed to build it with other service users, residents or whatever. But they may not be my kind of person, or maybe I feel a little more capable, or my communication style doesn't fit in with the person that I tend to get sat next to, or the room next to me, or that we tend to do activities with and stuff like that. So I think as long as it's clearly boundaried and we keep both parties safe, I think it is okay to. I think it's an interesting one. I was going to talk to you on the inclusion one actually a little bit about. Obviously, there's certain settings where you tend to have key workers, but there's certain care settings that don't work on key worker principles. I think there's pros and cons to the key worker, as far as it all depends on whether they get on with their key worker.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's it, isn't it? How much time is this key worker spending, and the key worker role? I think a lot of people get confused about it, because what is a key worker? What do they actually do? But you are right. I have seen settings that have had their key workers in that role because they generally get on really well and connect with that person. And then I've had other people where I've seen a key worker role applied because it's just part of the job role, but there's no sort of connection there. There's no sort of, I won't say friendship, but there's no sort of attachment there. And I can imagine, if I ever had a key worker, I want an attachment with them if I can.
It's a friendly relationship, even if it's not 100% a friendship. 100%. I think that's where, when choosing a key worker, I don't think it should ever necessarily be down to the resident client to be able to dictate who their key worker is, but trying to find a good match, to try and find somebody who's got similar interests, something they can connect with, and not going, well, that's your key worker and that's it. But I think I've come across it before with like behavioural planning, for instance, where some settings seem unhappy with, well, this person prefers to watch TV with this member of staff. They prefer to go in the car with this member of staff. They prefer to do this with this member of staff. And I've heard it kind of said, but they shouldn't get to dictate, they can't dictate who they get to spend time with. And I agree with that to some degree, but I'm also on the flip side, like, there's certain friends I like to go to the pub with. There's certain friends I'd like to go to a movie with. There's things I like to do with my dad that are different from things I'd like to go out and do a day with my mum. It doesn't mean I'm getting to control, or it just means I've got a preference, I've got a choice. And why shouldn't anybody have that right to be able to make those choices and have preferences? What I'm not allowed to do is going, well, I like doing everything with you, so you've got to do everything with me. And that's it, because that isn't a normal, healthy, respectful relationship either.
So it makes life hard for the caregivers, because when you go on holiday, or if there's staff sickness and all those sorts of things. Yeah. So I think building up a good few therapeutic connections is a really positive thing. But yeah, I do see it quite a lot, and I've seen some beautiful relationships between staff members and residents, and it's been really nice. Obviously, we're not going to get along with everybody. And I do then see, obviously, we're talking about the psychological needs. I think sometimes without that attachment, we're just meeting basic needs. Yeah. So, yeah, your everyday sort of water, warmth, all that sort of thing. So what I say to caregivers is that, we shouldn't get attached. And I'm like, please do, to a professional standard. Yeah. Obviously, keep professional, keep those boundaries, but you can like your residents, you can have a laugh with them, you can interact with them, you can bond over certain life situations or whatever it might be. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, I don't think, anyway.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I think that's the same again, whether it's teacher to student, whether it be foster parent to child. I don't think it matters in any therapeutic relationship. So attachment is a big part of that. You've got to, because it's that mutual, you matter to me. If I don't feel like I matter to you, then why should I listen to you, engage with you, connect with you, talk to you? It just doesn't work at that point. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, definitely not.
I think on the attachment side as well, obviously it's quite a deep subject as far as attachment issues and things like that may come out.
That's for another podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big things with the Kitwood flower, and it kind of, I know we spoke about, you've encountered some people who don't like the equation, that was Kitwood's equation as well. So Thomas Kitwood kind of basically specified that dementia is actually a combination of a person's personality, their biography and history, their cognitive ability, their social environmental factors. I think there's one other I'm missing in there. And that all combines together to what we see as dementia actually makes up. I mentioned biography, I think was in there. There's one other I'm missing somewhere. But all of those factors contribute together to make up what we see as a person living with dementia. It's not a little person with big dementia. It's, dementia, a big person with dementia. It's a small bit, person still is the main focus of it.
Yeah.
Now, I like the equation because I think it can be applied to any situation, whatever. I basically look at the individual is made up of their identity, their personality, their biography, their environmental, social factors and stuff like that. Now, I know when we teach it, the focus is on obviously the big one that we can change. We can't change somebody's past. We can't change somebody's personality. We can adapt the social environmental factors as far as their well-being to promote positive outcomes and good well-being and stuff. And I think that's where the Kitwood flower comes into play as well, isn't it? That it's the idea of it is that the stem is made up of all your basic physiological needs as far as pain relief and food and water and, health and those sorts of things. And that can sometimes be the focus of certain care sectors. We need to make sure their nutrition levels are high, their hydration levels are high, that they're toileting properly, that this, that and the other. And it can be so... I remember you telling me one, I'll come on to in a second, but I think people so focus on the physical well-being, and that's where the whole idea of the Kitwood flower was to kind of don't forget about the flower, because the flower is as important to a person's well-being. And I love the Patch Adams principle on that, as far as, you treat a disease, you either win or lose, but if you treat the person, you'll always win no matter what. And I think that's such an important message. And I know that you gave me a great example one time where you were having a home that was having difficulties with a particular gentleman, struggling to engage with him. I think he had damage to his legs, so had to have his legs dressed. Yeah. And the staff were saying he's rude, he tells us no and stuff like that. And I think you gave really good advice on that. Yeah. As far as but you're only going in to do the stem, you're forgetting about the flower. Yeah,
he had open wounds on his legs and they smelled really bad. Yeah. He couldn't smell them and he said it ain't Jeff in me, it's somebody else. And the staff were just literally going in, do you want a shower? Do you want a shower? No, F, no, F, that kind of thing. And I said, go in and ask him how he is.
Yeah.
Don't mention the shower. Go in and say, are you okay? Did you sleep all right? Are you in any pain? Would you like us to sit with you for a while? Engage with him. Don't ask him if he wants the shower. Well, he's refused. Yes, he's refusing the shower because he's probably in agony. And a shower by female carers or people that he doesn't know probably seems really, really scary. Go and speak to him and ask him how he is. And I think it came that within a few weeks, they managed to do washing and redressing and stuff like that. But
because they focus on the relationship rather than the task.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the whole underpinning thing is of person-centered, isn't it? It's focusing on the person behind the behavior, the person behind the medical condition, the person behind the mental health condition, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're kind of, and even when I'm teaching around behavior stuff, I go, if you go in to try and do a certain activity like that, and you just go into the activity, you might win, you might lose. But if you go in and go, okay, well, I've got two. One, can I just spend 5 minutes engaging with this person, building rapport, building connection, and also then dress his legs, for instance.
Yeah.
Well, even if I get one of them, I shouldn't ever feel like I'm walking out feeling like I failed and not my job right.
Yeah.
Because I've still succeeded 1 out of 2. If I only go in going, I need to get his legs dressed, I need to get him showered, I need to get him this, that and the other.
It's task orientated, isn't it? And I think a lot of caregivers, I don't knock caregivers for this because they are under a lot of pressure. A lot of management want tick, 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 tick done. And one thing I hear is, we don't have time. But it's cost versus benefit. Do I want the big, massive distress behaviour, whether it's elderly, young child? Do I want that big bit, that's going to be really upsetting for both all parties?
Yeah.
Or can I spend that extra, what you just said, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? So how are you? Are you okay? It's building that meaningful engagement and connection. So I don't like hearing we don't have time.
and I do get, it's not to take anything away from the stresses, and there is times where it's very, very difficult and there's a lot to do.
Yeah.
I think I always use it when I'm looking at like manual handling, for instance, that it can be very easily fall into trap. We're usually in that person-centered place, or we might be getting somebody up in the morning. We go in and we, have a chat with them. How did you sleep? It's all kind of slowly getting them engaged in the world and just connecting with them before you start moving on to the task.
Yeah.
But suddenly then get told we've got staff members, who've called in sick. We're running low on staff, so we're going to have to really crack on today. So try and get done as quick as you can. And that's where suddenly person-centered goes out the window, and suddenly this care workers going into the room, opening the curtains. We've got a busy one today. Come on, let's get some clothes sorted. And suddenly, I try and get over, do you think that person is going to be more or less cooperative now?
Yeah.
More likely, they're going to be one, you've rushed them, you've not given them time, but also, why would I hurry up for you when you're not treating me as a person? You're not asking me how my day was, or how I slept, and what I'd like. Yeah, I'm a job for you to do. Yeah. So I say that you think you're saving time by doing that. They probably take, I should imagine, I know I would feel like taking my sweet time, being as awkward and as difficult as I possibly could.
I definitely
Maybe
would.
not consciously, but even non-consciously, kind of just acting out a little bit, being a little bit obstinate, being a little bit stubborn, being a little bit difficult, because I'd be upset. I'd be hurt. That why am I so unimportant to you that you can't even take your time out? You don't treat me as a person. I'm just a job for you to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much within the Kitwood flower that obviously the focus is on the well-being of the person we're looking after within the Kitwood flower. But I try and get over, and I know that you're on the same page with me at this. It's such a symbiotic relationship between the two.
Yeah.
If I'm helping and following that person-centered practice, we know we're going to reduce distress behaviors. We know that it has significant positive outcomes as far as the organization's concerned, the well-being of the client's concerned. So suddenly we're feeling like we're doing a better job, we're enjoying our job more. Well, then our productivity is going to be up and we feel happier and less stressed.
Positive outcomes for all, Andy.
Well, that is our mantra. We're not getting our tagline in there.
Yeah, that's it. No, I completely agree. Again, it all has a domino effect, a knock-on effect. So it's more positive for the people that you're supporting, again, no matter what age. But it's also, coming from a caregiver's point of view, knowing that you've done a good job or you've had an amazing day with that person. I know it sounds really selfish, but it's a bloody good feeling. It's really nice. Like, I've done something meaningful today. I've made this individual not made them, but I've engaged and it's been happier. I know it's, we often talk about a lot of the not so nice or negative sides of care, but as a caregiver and you getting that from your service users, it's a wonderful feeling. It's really, really nice. And, a lot of caregivers I've met really try their hardest to reach for that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. As we kind of draw to a close on this particular topic, obviously we've referred to a bit where, Kitwood's flower predominantly developed for dementia, but I think it can be utilised and thought of, or at least in the back of your mind, with all caregiving relationships. And I would include kind of unpaid caregivers as well. That it can be very easy, I think, if you're looking after a loved one, to go into, well, I've just got to make sure that I'm meeting their needs, I'm ticking the box, I'm getting their medication sorted and forgetting about it. But don't forget to connect. Don't forget to enjoy the other parts of the relationship. I know we've done stuff before on the kind of the positives around, especially with elderly care and stuff, but it's, that you may get insights into that person's life that you never would have got if they didn't have that condition.
Yeah.
And I think but I think it's also worthwhile for unpaid caregivers or parents, whatever, if you do have that loved one moving into the care sector, that there's so much information that can be invaluable.
Yeah.
As far as, gathering what do they used to do, their life history, their preferences, their making sure we communicate that as much as we possibly can over to the care environment. Because if they don't know, they don't know.
Yeah.
I can't personalize a service if I don't know the person.
Yeah.
So the more that can be passed over, I think the better. And that's where, again, we always encourage to make logs, note things down, ask questions, find out. Have you ever seen any of the kind of grandma books or grandfather books or things like that, where it's kind of a book with lots and lots of questions in it that you can basically create your loved one's biography from just asking these questions and things like that. I think they're a wonderful idea, and I think
me too.
Anybody should take that time out, maybe before their loved one is reaches, if it is elderly wise, reaching an age where they can't do it anymore, or it may just be a case of any kid with any parent ever, or any parent with any kid ever, just kind of logging it.
There's so many tools online that people can use. I know for dementia there is loads of documents or booklets or things like that you can fill in online, like to give you a bit of an idea of what you would want other people to know about you and that sort of thing. So
it could be a good episode one time. We actually look at like one-page profiles and this is me and stuff like that. Some of the other stuff that's out there, because there's quite a few, and have a look at a few of those different examples and stuff. Could be a good one, couldn't it? I think as well, we spoke about doing one on advanced care and care plans and stuff as well. So I think that's a good one as well. So we'll bear that in mind for future. But we'll call it a day of that. So that's, thank you very much for joining me as always.
You're welcome, no problem.
And hopefully a few people out there. And I think it'd be really nice for those of you who are watching, pop in the comments, out of those 5 elements or those 5 petals of the Kitwood flower, which is, so we've got them again. So we've got comfort, identity, occupation, inclusion, and attachment, and then the modal of love. I didn't even look down at my paper or saying those. I did very well remembering them all. Maybe pop in the comments as far as, or send us a message at podcast@able-training.co.uk. Anything that you feel has been significant for you or important to you and your loved one related to that Kitwood flower, or how you've used that within your role or within what you do. So otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.